Greetings to our host. Thank you so much for the invite to participate in the NSTF engagement. I trust that it's both in person and online.
Yes.
So may I be guided on which way I must face, so I don't look.
If you look at me, the camera is right there. So
Great.
yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. As mentioned, my name is Malese Ndlhovu. I'm a senior business development manager at the Technology Innovation Agency. I'll just take you through around who we are, why we came about into existence, and what role and value proposition do we serve for South Africa, but also for sustainable growth of both the country, but at a global scale. That's basically what we do on behalf of the state. I'll go back to the reason why we are in existence. I trust that the bios have already been disseminated. My role is business development in terms of supporting the investments that have come about at TIA and making sure that that intellectual property that we have invested into goes through a well thought out and a proactive full investment lifecycle management and the translation of that into commercial opportunities. That's my role and how I support the agency and how I support the Republic of South Africa. Specifically, the fact that we are an agency of the DSI in accomplishing this task. We were formulated by an act of parliament on the premise that to create a venture or revenue or some type of transformation that would impact the lives of South Africans from an ideal is a business that happens in the knowledge economy. And it is a bit difficult to work with things that are mostly intangible because ideas reside in the brain. And it's not just touch and feel type of products that you procure from elsewhere, then you sell from elsewhere. You're converting an idea and it goes through several metamorphoses up until it gets to the marketplace where there is an intended user, there is an intended market, and there is a willing buyer for that. And also, we also need to look into the fact that at the end of this value chain of this innovation, lives have to be impacted. Social good has to be achieved as well. So we were created to bridge that innovation chasm. It's a popular term that is used to describe how ideas may be born out of great relevance, opportunities, mistakes, market gaps, and many other rationales why one would come up with a very relevant and highly impactful idea. However, for it to reach to the marketplace, it goes through this value chain where there was a higher level of failure than conversion of those ideas into product and services and consumable goods in the marketplace. So this is why we were created to be able to play that role that is more or less around having a strong catalytic role around supporting innovation. But also, we don't necessarily use funding support for that, just money only. It's financial and non-financial so that we can have thorough handholding of supporting these innovations into, as I've already mentioned, economic opportunities and sustainability for our country. We can go to the next slide. I think I've already covered our mandate, but in just one sentence, TIA is an agency of the Department of Science and Innovation, and we are mandated to support the development and exploitation, which is referred to as commercialization of discoveries, innovations, and improvements for the betterment of the country, the quality of life of the country, but also for an economic advantage. The reason why we have to see the end side of what we are doing is because we envisage growth, sustainable growth. The country needs to move in terms of income. It needs to move in terms of jobs created. It needs to move in terms of our competitiveness at a global scale, where we are venturing, and we actually have, but I'm just making sure that we're just putting the rationale behind. We're venturing into a knowledge economy. We have vast of resources of public institutions and including individuals on the ground that are strong intellectual property players, and they generate that intellectual property. And we have these disparate systems that support the creation of that intellectual property. However, we need to make sure that there are tangible outcomes of our existence in supporting this reality, to make sure that as a country, we can create more and more startup ventures. This is where you're creating a company out of your intellectual property and your know-how, and what you render is a service worth making money out of. And we also need to look into the fact that we are a developing economy. So the companies that we generate or we support to have created at the end of the life cycle of these innovations are able to grow enough to also create more jobs and absorb skills that are needed to man those corporations, be it small, be it medium. The fact that you would need the supporting expertise to be able to man your venture and also grow enough to be able to scale. You scale locally, regionally, and internationally. That is our role. And what we've just highlighted here is that the fact that we want to then create these ventures at the end of the lifeline, it's so that the country benefits. And we also see a tangible return on investments, because we are using the state coffers. We are using money from the parliament to invest in innovation. And at the end of the day, there has to be a realistic and tangible answers in terms of how have we converted the money that we invested into economic opportunities, into products and services exploited in the marketplace. How have we impacted the lives of South Africans, and how are we moving our GDP forward? So this is the non-financial support that we embed as part of our commercialization focus, over and above the funding that we disperse to investments that we have accepted after a rigorous process. We have to also mention that we take the muscle that we have, the proximity that we have to the state organs, to the marketplace, industry players, your big corporations, and also our cooperative relationships that we have with global players. We have to then now use that to our advantage to make sure that it can benefit the life of, I would want to avoid using the entrepreneur, because it's a large word, but let's say the life of the ventures that were created out of the intellectual property that we invested in. We want to make sure that when we support them with these type of interventions, they can at least get closer to securing their offtakes. They can have market access, and we can also funnel them up to follow-on funding that they would need to be able to scale. And we can also make sure that in all of this, the IPR Act is respected along the value chain of that transaction, to a part where all the permutations that come about with the IPR, with the fact that we're using public funds, are respected accordingly. So I think I would have just covered in terms of the services that we provide. And I would like to just mention that we do this for all key sectors of the economy. The key facets of where we invest into are available on our website, but just at a higher level, we have the industrial sectors, which would be your natural resources, your advanced manufacturing, your energy, and your ICT. Then you also have the bioeconomy divisions that would support innovations that are born within the life sciences domain. And we have then the supporting programs along the line that merges the lifeline of what innovation goes through and the innovator goes through. We have different types of programs that would make the life of an innovator quite more, reasonable, because it's not easy at all. And we also have infrastructures that an innovator will be able to take their early innovation to test upon in highly specialized domains that they would not otherwise afford. So we have all those different types of interventions in-house. And I think the next slides, I'll just take you through our high-level funding modalities in terms of when you come through to us and after an application process, it's a rigorous process that has to then furnish the requirements of who we are and what we expected of by the state. But at the end of that, then you will be able to access one of the funds that I will be able to, will be presenting just now. As I have mentioned, we are positioned right at the core of when innovation is discovered. We are within the value chain of innovation. We are at the part where you have outputs out of your innovations, and it's no longer just a thought and concept in your head, or let's say in terms of R&D perspective, it's no longer basic research. It's actually outcomes of applied research that needs to go into basic prototyping. And now you need to now engage with your IP, interrogate it, and be able to see how can you start with the early development process. So this is basically the value chain that we are positioned at. However, because the scale at which we operate and the funds that we have is not enough to be able to accomplish this task that has to happen within the country, we work with varied partners. We collaborate with varied partners. We rope in many other varied partners all the way to your DFIs, which is development finance houses, to be able to see through the life that the innovations that have come through to us at seed funding level, make it all the way to commercialization and scale up in the marketplace. And there's different requirements along the journey of that innovation, requirements in terms of funding. And the quantums vary based on the modalities of what is it that you're creating, what is your market size, and what is your human capacity to be able to take those conversions, and what type of partnerships do you need along the way. With the funding instruments, I won't go into much detail. It's available on our website. It's just to give you an overview of each funding instrument for convenience sake. That's basically, the reason why we put these three main funds, it was basically because in the main function of TIA, we have identified commonalities around the type of deals that would come through to us. Investment deals, which would be the innovations on the innovator side. When it comes to us and we are about to be an early tech investor, we would refer them as investment. So when it comes to our investments, when they come through, you would find that okay, I think I will just leave it here. But nevertheless, we would have seed funding investments that would come through at various junctures, entrepreneurs. Some would come from the Office of the Technology Transfer at public institutions. Some would come from science councils. And these type of innovations would just need that early de-risking investment that anchors the value proposition of that idea, but it also anchors early development so that you are able to establish a prototype that will be able to now build either towards a bigger prototype that will be a demonstrator, or maybe one that you can take to your early market. So the permutations there are varied. It depends on the scope and the focus of the actual investment. However, we do have a fund to support that so that we can see how viable is this at this juncture, and what does the market say about this type of innovation at that particular juncture. The next fund would be our Technology Development Fund. It's a bigger fund than the seed funding because we are not seeding an idea anymore into a prototype. Now we're developing a full-scale technology demonstrator that will take you a couple of months to years to develop, depending on the complexity of your technology. And with that, we have to then make sure that we have metrics that wants to position this innovation as not just only competitive, but you also have to look at what is the proximate market saying about it? Are you able to engage with an early market for piloting purposes? Are you able to do field trials? What is it that you're going to produce that is going to convince the external stakeholder of the merits of your innovation and what you need from them at the particular time? So at the outcome of this fund would be the technology demonstrator and also ascertaining viability, economic viability, technical viability, all the feasibilities that needs to be ticked right, and to also look at the fact that how is this innovation going to generate revenue? That is the part where this fund will be starting to unlock those type of interrogations and the support that is needed accordingly. And the Commercialization Support Fund, it's basically in line with what I have mentioned when I opened my presentation. This is where we are now looking at viabilities and modalities of converting that which you have created, that which is tangible and is a demonstrator. How do you now then package it into a full-scale product that will venture into the market? How will you be able to sell it if it does not need to be something that is tangible? And how would you be able to transact with it as a form of fundamental intellectual property that is within your ambit? And you want to now make revenues out of that, but you also now intend to take it to the domain that is intended to, and you impact the lives that you had envisioned when you came up with the idea. I would like to mention that with this life cycle, things change along the lines. Market shifts, technology shifts, geopolitical dynamics, and you lose some resources. So along the way, the strategy of how you had intended to commercialize your ideas have to also be recalibrated throughout the technology development and throughout while you are now near market facing. This is where we have to now interrogate and support the innovation with that cap in mind, and also seeing what type of capacity do you need at that time to make sure that you are able to sell. The type of resources that you need, who and how does your jockey look like at that juncture? Do you have people that will be able to go and secure offtakes, sell? How do you need our support? And the likes that I've already mentioned on the business enablement slide. I think it might be, yeah, we can move to the next one. So this fund, it's a fund that was conceptualized a couple of years ago. It's an industry matching fund where we collaborated with angel investors and other funding houses that were investing in the early tech innovation space. And the commonality here was that we have a model where it's matched funding, a rand for the rand that was provided, or in some instances, if TIA is able to then provision for a bigger quantum of what was already initially investment, we would be able to do that based on the business case and based on the attractiveness of the investment. But also the affirming factor here is that you have active investors that are in the marketplace that have already endorsed and invested in your investment. And they need TIA to also pitch in to make sure that you can move. And TIA brings its own value proposition, which is not just money. Also, those angel investors bring a vested interest in your investment because they will also support you to win. So at the end of the day, the persons that benefit the most is the innovators and the venture that they're driving at that juncture. So we have piloted this and we have some successes, and we look forward to now improving on the modalities and making sure that it is an airtight type of fund that we can support, because most of the early tech innovations in our country, especially, let's say, for instance, fintech, tends to move quite faster than, our normal life cycle that we are familiar with in terms of other intense, heavy industries that we also support. So this is the fund that now would make the angel investors' life easy because they have quick returns in mind. And we also then are part of that value chain. And we have the Innovation Fund, it's the DSI Innovation Fund. I think there have been all kinds of good talks about it. This is a fund that was introduced as another intervention by the state to be able to support at the juncture where you are market facing and you still have that high potential but high risk innovation that we are mandated to support in, but we alone will not be able to see that to fruition. So we have the support of the state, the Department of Science and Innovation Fund, and we are able to then access that to help our innovations venture into the market, encounter early revenues, and be able to do some level of business development and product development. Let's say you have a platform. Out of that platform, you may have derivatives of your IP. There's a fundamental IP that we've invested into. However, your proximate market is showing interest in using some of the values of your underlying IP. You're not just going to package that and hand it over to a client. It becomes redundant, but you can on the fly package the derivative that is relevant for that market and be able to venture into the market. However, all of this, we have to mention, it has been reflected in my previous slides, but we have to reiterate, it is an expensive process. Product development from technology development is an endeavor on its own. And also you then need another headache of then selling that. So with this, we are able to support our technologies become into existing real life technology startups and be able to scale at a much better scale than they would if we were not there. But also we have the capacity to take them to international markets where their innovations may have an uptake here, but at the same time, you might have a concurrent uptake in other adjacent markets in other countries. Then we then come about to make sure that our relationships and trade relations with those countries are matured enough and they are primed enough to be able to receive you to transact in those particular countries. And we do this with the help and access of the Innovation Fund. I think with that, I will just then wrap up my presentation. This is how we support the full investment lifecycle of innovations at seed level up until it becomes a product diffused and exploited in the marketplace and for also social good. Thank you so much.